secure. And we're going to talk about a number of things, but the main thing I think we want to talk about is how to be flexible and how to work in this environment, particularly after a pandemic. The difference between large companies and small companies. Can small companies be more nimble and better equipped, if you like, to go forward? Gio, what do you think about that?
When it comes to smart, the technology moves at a real kind of fast pace. And if you're not nimble, you're just not going to keep up with the pace of how fast the technology moves. So if you look at the larger companies, they've got board meetings and they need to have meetings about meetings. They're clearly not going to be able to respond as fast as the market wants it to respond. And the negatives of that is that they get a product to market too fast. And if they get it too fast before they've done all the necessary kind of checks and balances on the tech working correctly, it fails. And then if it fails, not only does it have a negative effect on them, but it also has a negative effect on a wider market.
And what about you, Nick? I mean, so is it different when it comes to hardware? But you are involved, are you not, with the smart side of hardware?
Yeah, we're involved in both, Chris. I agree with Gio entirely. I think it is harder, and that's not to say that the very large companies, the very large tech companies, have got it off to a fine art, but invariably it can be much harder for the larger organizations to have meetings, as Gio was saying, to get something to market that's what the market wants. I think the benefits, or one of the benefits that the smaller businesses have, like Smart Ready and Brisant, is being owner managed. You're that much closer to the market. You speak to the customers, the people that are making the decisions about what the product needs to do. It's about being able to give the customer more of what the customer wants, but actually knowing what the customer wants. There have been examples, and linking it to smart, where there have been products that have been designed, engineered, project development started, that have taken so long to get developed, that have taken 2 years to get developed, that by the time they were ready to launch, the technology, the concept that they were originally designed on was 2 years old, which in the tech world is light years. That product, and there've been products that have gone through that development cycle that by the time they get ready to complete, they just never make it to market because they're out of date before they're launched.
But is that because of, I mean, you'd think, wouldn't you, with a big company, they'd have all the financial resource to have good R&D, spend a lot of money on it, and be much more able than the small company to bring it to market. Is it a matter then that the big companies, it's kind of meetings after meetings, as opposed to actually getting to market with the product?
There's certainly a degree of bureaucracy that gets in the way. In businesses our size and Smart Ready's size, we can have an idea, we can see something, we can develop something, we have a chat, we'll decide what's the best way to do it, speak to some of our customers, and we're working on it next week. And that's the kind of agility that comes with scale, if you will, with a smaller scale than you don't get necessarily with the larger operations.
I mean, something you said there, which I think is very interesting, and that is that the use of the customer. Is it that the small customer, and I'll come to you, Gio, on this, is it that the small company who's got the customer base can talk to them and involve them more than the large company? Involve them in that development process?
Okay, there's a political response to this, and there's a geo response to this.
Glad you got that, Gio.
I'll give you the geo one. No, if you're at the forefront of innovation, by default, you're kind of thinking well ahead from any of your customers are thinking. So if you go to your market or to your customer and say, this is what I'm thinking of, some of them will look at you as if you're talking a different language. No, actually, I don't necessarily go to my customer base when I'm inventing something because it's so far ahead. And if I did, I think it will either bring me back a few sort of years in development because they can only see the world or their manufacturing through their paradigm. Well, I see it much further ahead. So while it's important to obviously get customer feedback, I normally do that once I've kind of finished what I feel is right as an innovator. We did that at the show. It falls straight into why it's taken us an extra 2 years. So we did 2 years of development of the initial kind of idea of what the sensors and the smart ready model was going to look like, launched it 2 years ago. And then we went back, and I specifically did that as a soft launch to test the market. Then the talking to our customers was invaluable because then we heard firsthand. But for me, it's more the tweaking. So I think, okay, I've got the initial idea. Everyone loved the initial idea. Now I'm going to fine tune it and tweak it. The reason why it's taking a little bit longer than we anticipated, it was because of what's happened since 2019 to where we are now. So the answer is yes. When you're kind of at one stage of the innovation kind of development, and no, if it's right at the beginning and depend on what you're trying to do. Does that make any sense to you guys?
I mean, has this pandemic actually been an advantage to you both in giving you time to develop things and think through projects, or has it worked the other way? Nick?
The pandemic been a benefit? I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say yes to that, Chris. No, I think, you know, there's been, it's focused us an awful lot to look at ourselves, to look internally, to look at how the business runs, and it's given us the opportunity to speak much more to our customers and work with our customers. I don't necessarily think that it has given us new thoughts, new opportunities with regards to product. What we spent a lot of our time during the dark, quiet days of lockdown number one was looking at creating new ways, still being innovative, but being innovative with regard to finding ways to help our customers be able to sell more product rather than create new product for them. What was important at the time for us and for our customers was that when we came round, when we came out, that they were going to hit the streets running and that they were going to be able to get back up to full speed as quickly as possible.
So is it that smaller companies like yours, Gio, for instance, I mean, are you more able than the large companies then to be able to give these opportunities to your customers because you're more nimble? So you can talk to them about business opportunities, about how to communicate with their customers and so on.
Absolutely, 100%, yeah. Clearly that if we have a more closer relationship with any customer, I think that doesn't just apply to our sector, I think it can apply to any sector. That if you have a more one-to-one relationship, the message comes a lot clearer. And that's something that Steve Jobs was really good at doing. So he really got the whole model right. It was a the world's largest company, but the messages were still very like personal, one-on-one. People kind of related to Apple as if they're like Steve Jobs was talking to all of them, or the brand was talking to all of them on a one-to-one level. Now, that is where Apple got it 100% right. And since Steve Jobs' obviously sad passing, it's kind of lost its way. It's kind of, his legacy is so strong that it's kind of kept some reins on it. But with Tim Cook, it's losing its way a little bit. It's getting a bit more corporate. So the whole being smaller is better by being nimble is correct. But large companies can be like that because it's, you know, Apple's a prime example of that. So you have to ask yourself, what are the leaders of these large companies actually doing? Are they just picking their kind of big, fat, kind of director paychecks up and don't really care so much about what their customers say? They're more interested in the P&L and the balance sheet, or and is that where they make the mistake? Look how many cautionary tales that have been when there's been new emerging markets that the existing kind of major players have fallen behind. You know, the Kodaks, the Motorola's, the Nokias, the Symbians, who did the original mobile phone operating platforms. You know, it's countless. You can. There's loads out there that just don't move fast enough. Now, is this an educational podcast video for these big companies? Probably not. They'll hear it. They'll kind of shrug us off.
Tim Cook, yeah, I've got Geo here for you. One sec.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm going out to dinner later on with them. So it's not. It is that. Yes, smaller companies. My advice would be, if going out to the industry, is that look for the smaller companies for innovation. So the smaller companies play a massive, vital role in kind of creating debate and stimulating innovation in the marketplace, because you can guarantee these companies, the big companies, will follow afterwards. They'll always follow. Some try copy, imitate. Some try and do it by trying to be innovative, but they tend not to be that. They can't be that innovative because they just haven't got the right people.
And some then just acquire the small innovators.
Yes.
Let me just ask you both. You've set up systems during this sort of lockdown periods and everything to talk to your customers, probably made it more efficient. You haven't got people charging around on the road going and seeing people. Will you keep those systems in place now that we are hopefully coming away from this sort of period of the pandemic? Will those systems that you set up be advantageous for you for the future and save you money?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think, you know, it's been one of the lessons that we've learned from this. I mean, take this as an example, Chris. We're doing an interview over Zoom. If we were doing this 5 or 6 years ago, we'd have been waiting to tee up an appointment where the three of us were able to get in a room together. That would have taken significantly longer to be able to orchestrate and be able to put together. Yeah, it's an evolutionary thing, and I think one of the lessons that we learned through the pandemic was that people have become much more accepting and have embraced new methods, such as exactly what we're doing right now. And yeah, it is incredibly more efficient. And okay, you could argue it doesn't replace completely the whole face-to-face impact, but yeah, it does. It goes a long way.
And I think COVID has kind of started us to think in a different way. So going back to your original question, you know, as COVID had, you know, some positive impact, I'm kind of have to say yes again. It's not, I mean, it's a crazy thing to say. We all are ready to talk about all the negative impact, but nothing ever gets changed unless you're looking down the barrel of a gun. Yeah, that history has taught us that. Nothing gets changed. And now what's happened, what the pandemic has done, is made the whole world look down the barrel of a gun. So the immediate reaction is one of negative, because the human race always tries to embrace the negative news rather than the positive news. But the positive news will follow, 100% will follow from what's happened in the last 2 years.
But you're both involved, aren't you, in businesses that require product and resources. And I know, Gio, you've now said that you're not going to go to Fit.
Yeah.
And I can kind of understand where you're coming from there. Mm-hmm. But is that not the way you get to your public, you get to your customer, don't you, through Fit? You did it very successfully 2 years ago. 100%.
The decision to not to go to Fit in September has been incredibly difficult. We had meeting upon meeting saying, shall we, shan't we? And it was all driven by what the government was saying, by a sense of responsibility. And like what Nick said, if we went ahead with the show, it would be hugely disrespectful maybe to the people that are suffering out there. So yes, so the short answer is trade shows like the Fit is incredibly important, but then we also have to look at the wider picture and not be kind of drawn in by kind of people's wishful thinking, like to think everything's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay, and I think we need to admit the reason as to why it's not going to be okay. Trust me, I've spent the last 18 months designing. So COVID for me has been great because I haven't been ever on the road, so all I've been doing is designing. So 18 months behind my computer. The last time I did this was probably 20 years ago when I first started designing products. About 18 months of uninterrupted design time. And during that time, you can guarantee the sales of Red Bull have gone up because all I was drinking was Red Bull to keep going for the 18 months. So that's a positive spin on what's happening at the pandemic. But joking aside, the Fit to me was so important. I was getting so excited to launch the product, really excited, especially with a product like ours, is that in order to create a big brand feel, you're never going to do that by marketing or by TV advertising. People need to feel, they need to feel the energy of an in-person chat. So incredible decision that I've had to make, but I stand by my decision.
Where do you stand on this, Nick?
I agree with Gio completely. You know me, Chris, I love a good show. We've been to every Fit show. And prior to that, I think we've been to every GlassX, and I think the physical show has an incredible place in industry, and particularly in our sector. Fit show has been remarkably successful. I think there's a time and place for everything. We've actually withdrawn as well. We don't feel it's the time and the place. It's not appropriate, I don't think, at the moment. The world has some really quite scary raw material hikes, and everything's in complete disarray. There are some fairly significant cost increases coming through all supply chains at the moment. And, we're working with our customers like everybody else is working with their customers. And we didn't think that it was the right thing to do to be going to customers in a time like now, asking for price increases and then getting a big soapbox that, it's not a cheap thing to do, to go to a trade show, to do it properly, especially as, we like to think we do. And I know Gio definitely did 2 years ago. To ask our customers to pay more money for the product that they've been buying, and then for them to see us spend a fortune on trying to attract new customers. We felt it would be disrespectful. So no, we too have given notice and said that we're not going to be exhibiting at the Fit Show.
That's a very big decision. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying about the resources issue and price increases and things. But to pull out, I mean, it's already cost you significant cash, I guess, to plan to go to Fit.
It has. And, this isn't something that we take lightly, especially, I have two hats to wear, both, my marketing hat that, that voice in the back of my head saying, oh, go on, Nick, go on, you'll love it. Where the commercial hat saying no, it's not the right time. And when people do shows, whether or not you're exhibiting or whether or not you're visiting, it needs to be done with confidence and it needs to be done with excitement for a whole variety of reasons. We felt, and this is not to say in any way, shape or form that we feel that we're never going to do the Fit Show. If the Fit Show was to happen at another time, then we'll be at the front of the queue, as we were both this time and for the very first ever Fit Show. We were right at the front of the queue there also.
Can I just pick up on something Nick said there, which it kind of really resonated with me, is that when you go to trade shows, there's got to be a feel of excitement. Now, I've never looked at it that way, but the moment you said that, it kind of like, to me, it kind of said it all. It's excitement. And that's what I haven't been feeling. I've been feeling more reservation than excitement. And I'm sure that's the same for the visitors as well as exhibitors. So there just isn't that excitement. When the excitement comes back into it, that is when it's time to kind of show off your products and do trade shows. I think that should be the takeaway message for anyone at the top making decisions for their respective business, which also includes, Montgomery Group, who are the owners of the Fit Show. They need to be looking, is the excitement there? And are we trying to kind of force the excitement into the visitors or into the exhibitors? That's the question that needs to be asked.
So really, it's come down to not so much the pandemic and the effect of that. It's come down to actually the resources and the supply issues, which have become part of the pandemic, hasn't it? It's been driven by that, of course. But what's interesting, isn't it? Fabricators and installers generally over this period in our industry have had a great time. The business has been walking in the door for them, hasn't it? Does that continue, or does that become now competition against tour operators for cash that's becoming available? It's going to be interesting. Does everybody want to go on a holiday, or do they carry on improving stuff at home?
I'm sure when things get tighter again, the industry will do what it's proven over decades to be very proficient at being able to do, and we'll start turning on each other and starting to try and eat each other again. But as we are at the moment, there's no real need to do that, is there? Because there's more than enough demand, and lead times are going out as almost on a daily basis.
I actually think that the home improvement sector, and windows and doors are a big part of that, including conservatories, are going to come out of it looking okay. I wouldn't want to be in the hospitality industry because of that for sure.
No, so, I agree.
Yeah, I don't. I actually think it's done us a favour. I say it's a favour. We're not going to come out of it bad. Essentially, I think we're going to come out smelling of roses at the end of this,
and we're all going to be significantly stronger for it. I think as that age-old adage goes, what doesn't kill you will only make you stronger.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking to you as ever, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.